All right, Ben, you can kick it off.
Thanks, Ryan. Great. So the original intention of this webinar when we scheduled it last week was for us to help clarify the SEVIS rule change that happened last week on July 6th, because there were a couple of pieces of language in that statement that were causing a bit of confusion and definitely a lot of anxiety for students. So we thought we would take the chance to talk directly to our offshore staff for EduCo and also for some of our most important agencies. Yesterday afternoon, after we had prepared the presentation, we got a good piece of news actually here in the US. So as a result, the nature of our presentation has changed and it's become overall much more positive situation, I would say. So we'll take the chance to summarize what's happening here and then also remind you about policies and opportunities for our fall intake for our US universities. So basically, as I mentioned, on Monday, July 6th, there was a rule change announced by the Trump administration via the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement branch, which is called ICE. And it had all these, changes in policy about what an international student could and couldn't do, what type of classes they could or couldn't take this fall. But it caused a very big amount of concern and sort of outrage by the university community here in the United States, as well as local governments and the US business community as well. So there was a bunch of lawsuits that were filed, and as a result, the Trump administration yesterday actually rescinded the rule change. So everything that was in the July 6th rule change has been removed and invalidated. So the July 6th policy directive and the July 7th FAQ from ICE is now rescinded. And as a result, the policy for international students will revert back to the original guidance issued on March 13th about what students could and couldn't do uh, during the COVID crisis, basically. And, as I already mentioned, this reversal by the Trump administration was basically triggered by a lot of pushback from more than 200 American universities, as well as city governments, Silicon Valley, a lot of the corporate community here in the United States. The first lawsuit against this policy change was filed by Harvard and MIT about 2 days later on July 8th. And there was a federal court in Boston that was about to start the lawsuit procedures and hear the arguments from both sides yesterday. And like 2 minutes before the trial was going to start, the administration announced that they were withdrawing the policy directive, the rule change, and as a result, everything went back to March. And we were happy that a couple of our partners, the University of Nebraska system and the University of Maryland system, had also joined in lawsuits against this rule change. So overall, I think that's pretty positive news. It's going to make the situation a lot less complicated for students. We're going to review in the next slides about what opportunities students have for fall, and that affects returning students and new students. But as Brian mentioned, you can type any questions in the chat box, and we're happy to provide any further clarification about this. But in summary, really everything is just going back to the way it was in before July 6th. So that's pretty positive. Our following slides, are going to be a summary of policies and opportunities for all of our schools. So this slide shows all of the EduCo USA partner institutions on the left in the first column, and then the following 4 columns are the different, hang on one second, I just saw that I had a little typo here. The other slides are the different types of study modes that are available for fall 20. So column 1, we have 100% online, where the student is located offshore, meaning that they're still in China, India, Vietnam, wherever. They're not in the United States. And so far, Duke, Duquesne, UMBC, UNL are offering that opportunity for all students, as is NJIT for PG students. NJIT is not offering that 100% online option for undergraduate students, and we're still waiting to see if Seattle Pacific University will offer that. But that is available for the majority of our partners. The second option is that the student is enrolled in 100% online classes for fall 20, but they're located inside the United States, which would mean that they already have an F1 visa. So that is totally fine for, again, Duke, Duquesne, NJIT PG, UMBC, UNL, and for SPU, we're waiting to see if 100% online fall will be possible. And then all of our universities have prepared what we're calling the hybrid option, which is where a student could take some classes in person and some classes online. And that is available for all of our universities for all study types for fall 20. And then the final column is 100% in-person classes, where the student is studying on campus for all of their classes. And that is also totally possible for students who are able to get their visa in time. There is a possibility that course availability will definitely look different this semester because of COVID, but students are definitely encouraged to work with their advisors to put together their course schedule. And if they're able to get 100% in-person classes, that's totally fine and encouraged.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Hi everyone. Just wanted to clarify about the UMBC for the hybrid option. As of the moment, the leadership team of UMBC only announced that the hybrid program will only be available to current students. We Unfortunately, this has something to do, of course, with the safety of the staff, safety of the current students, and the community itself, as well as our incoming students. So basically, right now, in terms of the decision, we are, because of course ICE rescinded their case. Basically, we're back to almost online only courses for the fall 2020 semester.
Yeah, that's a great clarification. Thanks, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And we'll definitely share these slides following the presentation as well, so that you guys have these as a reference. Yeah, and so I think we covered this slide pretty well. The other thing we definitely wanted to make sure everyone is aware of, especially for our agency partners, is basically how many credits would a student need to be enrolled in for fall 20 in order to generate commission, so that we can pay the agent their incentives for helping advise and enroll the student, basically. So this table, again, shows you the different study modes and the different universities. And inside the cells, it shows how many credits are required for a student to be considered full-time, and as a result to generate commission. So I will cover off on Duke, Duquesne, NJIT, then I'll turn it over to Ryan for UMBC and UNL. So for Duke MIDP, students who are admitted for fall do have the opportunity to study offshore online, in the US online, in North Carolina, taking in-person and on-campus classes, or taking all their classes on campus there at Duke. as long as the student is enrolled for 9 credit hours, which is 3 classes, they are considered full-time, and they will basically generate a commission for the agent that helped recruit them. So Duke is pretty straightforward and flexible. On the Duquesne side, and Megan, if you're here too, feel free to unmute yourself and comment at any point that I talk about Duquesne. For undergraduate, again, the 4 study options are available, and as long as the student is enrolled between 12 to 18 credit hours on the undergraduate side, they are considered full-time. They will be covered by the EduCo contract in order to generate commission. For students who are master's or PhD students, it does depend a little bit on the program, but typically as long as a student is enrolled in 8 credit hours for the fall semester, they will be considered full-time and generate commission. And these also have all the different study options available. So 100% online based in the student's home country, 100% online based in the United States, a combination of in-person and online here in the United States, or taking all their classes on campus at Duquesne.
Brent, thank you. That's Megan from Duquesne. That was a perfect explanation.
Awesome. Thank you for validating that, Megan.
Sure.
Appreciate it. I'm going to defer to you for a couple of other points about Duquesne a little bit later too.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay, so about NGIT undergraduate, again, reminder that they are not offering the online option for undergraduate students. So that's why these 2 cells are marked as NA. That study mode is not possible for international students in the fall, basically. If they can get their F1 visa though and arrive to New Jersey in early September, NJIT is offering a hybrid option. And if students can put together a course schedule that's 100% in person, that's also great. As long as they're enrolled between 12 to 18 credit hours, that's full time. That will create or generate commission for the agency. On the master's degree side for NJIT, they do have their FlexPath option, which is listed online. You can see which master's degrees are covered by that. And students are able to take online classes there as long as they're enrolled in 9 credit hours. They will be considered full-time and generate commission for the agency that recruited the student. So take a look at that. That's NJIT. Let me flip it over to Ryan then to cover the next couple.
Thanks, Brent. So before I go over to UBC and UNL, I just wanted to clarify with you as well. Are you able to briefly discuss about scholarships, if which one would be applicable, if it's going to be 100% online or hybrid or whatnot?
Oh, good question. Let's see. So Duke doesn't have scholarships. Megan, would you be able to comment on scholarship for students who are full-time, either online or studying at Duquesne?
Sure. So students would be receiving their merit-based scholarship for undergraduate. That's our merit-based scholarship as well as the supplemental $4,000 scholarship. And then for our students who are in postgraduate degrees that have the 25% tuition scholarship, as long as the student is enrolled in full-time credits, whether they're on campus doing the hybrid option or online, they would still receive that scholarship as long as they're full-time.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and then additionally, the student will still receive the EduCo scholarship as well, the $2,000 EduCo scholarship.
Megan, quick one on how many credit hours would it take for students to be quote unquote full-time?
So for undergraduate students, it's a range of 12 to 18 credits is considered full-time. And then on the post-grad side, it varies by program. So some departments say it's 6 credits, some say it's 8. So we just have to look on a case-by-case basis to determine with that department if the student is full-time.
Perfect. Thank you. All right.
Sure.
Thanks,
Um,
Megan. Let me comment on NJIT really quick as well, Ryan. Let's see. So for undergraduates, again, if they're full-time, they'll receive the merit-based scholarship from the university, same as normal, but there's no online option, so it's not relevant. For online, NJIT FlexPath has a special scholarship that basically lowers the price of tuition by credit hour down to what it costs for a New Jersey resident. So it's kind of like a discounted tuition for the flex path. Again, I believe that's even for students who are part-time, but if they're part-time, it wouldn't generate commission. So that's something to be aware of. If they are in person, um, in fact, no matter the study mode, they do receive the EduCo scholarship as well for year one for NJIT PG. And then across the board, if any students are part-time in the fall semester, they likely don't receive their scholarships, and the scholarship is there waiting for them in spring. So I thought I would mention that too. But over to you, Ryan. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Brent. So for UMBC, basically for a student to be considered as a full-time student, then they would need to be enrolled in a total of 9 credit hours. That means 3 courses. However, we would only need at the very least 6 credit hours for you as our agents to receive a commission. So again, that's going to be 100% online if they're offshore or onshore or in the US. 6 credit hours. And for hybrid classes, it's going to be 9 credit hours. And then in terms of the scholarship for UMBC, for as long as they are enrolled full-time, the EduCo scholarship of $1,000 will actually be honored. However, if any of your students actually receive a graduate assistantships or teaching assistantship, please make sure to ask them to get in touch with their graduate program director or graduate program coordinator to make sure that they would have the definite answers regarding the scholarships tied to the GA. And then for UNL, so again, for UNL offers, of course, 4 options. One would be for the online students. Again, for some students, we are actually offering an additional of $3,000 scholarship. That $3,000 scholarship will be honored for as long as they will be enrolled full-time. So that means at least 12 credit hours, or like typically between 12 to 15 for a freshman. And then for the global scholarships, those scholarships that ranges from $2,000 to $15,000, it will be honored by the university regardless of their enrollment status, if it's actually part-time or full-time. However, if they are enrolled less than full-time or less than 12 credit hours, then the global scholarship will also be prorated. We don't have the exact amount on how much it will be prorated, but they can get in touch with our Office of Scholarships, or even just send me an email, and I'm more than happy to facilitate on that income. Right?
Great, thanks, Ryan. And then to finish up with SPU here, again, the online options for SPU are to be confirmed if a 100% online study mode will be possible. But SPU, again, is planning for hybrid options and also 100% in-person for the fall semester. On the undergraduate side, full-time status during that academic quarter, because SPU is a quarter system, is 12 to 18 quarter credits. And then on the postgraduate side, it's 6 graduate quarter credits. there are university scholarships and EduCo scholarship available for undergraduate students, and there's an EduCo scholarship available for postgraduate students for SPU, as long as the student is full-time.
Hey, Brent, just wanted to quickly ask this question for both of us as well as for probably Megan. Simran actually asked, like, for those who are deferring to spring, are the scholarship will be transferred to the next intake for each of the EduCo university? I'll quickly answer for UMBC. I would say yes. The $1,000 EduCo scholarship will be carried over to the spring 2021 intake. We do not have any information yet for the fall 2021, but most likely, yeah, that is most likely to be a yes as well. And then for UNL, it will definitely carry over to the next intake, right? For the other schools?
Yeah, Megan, do you want to comment on Duquesne?
Yes, we are carrying over the EduCo scholarship as well as the merit-based scholarship. So if the student does need to defer to spring, those scholarships will be honored for that semester. Same for Ryan. We don't have clear guidance yet about fall 2021, but we will keep the student updated.
Awesome. Yeah, and SPU's policy is the same as Megan just mentioned there for Duquesne. For NJIT, they have also told us that they are going to honor the student's admission status and scholarship offer as long as the intake is just deferred from fall 20 to spring 21. If it's deferred further into the future than that, it's likely that it would require a whole separate application. So it is okay to transfer it for one intake to spring 21 and still have the same scholarship offer, but any further than that probably will require a fresh evaluation. And then Duke, there's no scholarship. Great. Okay, so I think we'll proceed. We actually covered this a little bit already. So this slide is about if an admitted student defers from fall 20 to spring 21, what happens? And so we actually just talked about this. So what happens with the offer and scholarships? And for all 6 universities, the offer, so the student's admission status of admitted, as well as their offered scholarships, will transfer to the next intake for all of our universities. Just remember, though, that depending on the university policy, usually students can only defer twice. So if they originally applied in spring 20, for example, and they've already deferred a couple of times, they may need to file a new application eventually. And those of you that are working with PhD students, especially for NJIT, they probably will need to reapply because the graduate department's availability for research opportunities and spots in a PhD program is extremely variable from month to month even. And so that one's pretty tough, especially for PhD students. But Megan, I know you have some PhD admits for Duquesne as well. Do you want to mention anything about that for Duquesne?
So there's been some flexibility around PhD students needing to defer, and the departments have been really understanding of the current situation. So they've granted those deferment requests. But if you have any students that are considering and would like to talk to the department, please let me know, and I'm happy to set up those meetings.
Awesome. Great. The next column there says basically how does a student get the new I-20 for spring, because probably they were preparing for fall, and then we all know like the visa interview situation is very complicated right now for a fall arrival. So the student might be planning like, okay, now I'm ready to proceed with January intake. I want my I-20 for January or spring 2021 semester. And so we basically said the student can request this in late July. So basically, in the coming couple of weeks, it's fine to start deferring the admission to spring and begin requesting those new I-20s from our staff at all the different campuses. But we do have some positive news. We saw last week in China that there were some visa availability starting to open up in the embassies and consulates. And Ryan, do you want to just quickly mention what you saw from some students in India yesterday too? I know it's still speculation, but
yeah. So we do have a WhatsApp admitted groups for the UMBC students for fall 2020. Apparently, a lot of them are actually saying that there are a couple of schedules available for the visa interviews. First one, some students actually said that there was an available schedule for July in Kolkata, and then Mumbai is, I believe, in September, as well as in New Delhi. So those are the kind of things that, of course, the students or you guys would only be the one to have the information in, just because we don't really have an access to their, of course, CVS accounts and all that on when scheduling the visa interviews. As we move forward, you guys would probably hear from us as well if we know more detailed information. Not just coming from the students, but also coming from our colleagues outside EduCo, like of course our own international students office too. So we'll definitely let you know. But please feel free to get in touch with any of our campus coordinators to see if they know anything or if they've heard anything from our international offices.
great. Thanks, Ryan. So maybe to summarize as well, check and see what the visa situation is for a fall arrival. Maybe we can wait 1 or 2 additional weeks and just see if the consulates and embassies in your home country actually do start to open up some F1 appointments. For example, I know in Vietnam and Taiwan, the situation is actually really positive right now. And who knows what will happen with other countries as well. You know, if we get into early August though, and it just seems like a fall visa and a fall arrival is not going to be possible, please consider the online options for fall. And then our staff at all the campuses are super willing and happy to help with the spring I-20 process. The final column here is just a reminder about the enrollment deposit policies. So I'll run through them by school, and then if Ryan and Megan have anything to add, please do so. Duke does not have an enrollment deposit, so no worries there. For students who deposited for Duquesne for fall, but then defer to spring, the enrollment deposit does transfer to spring. Is that right, Megan?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Same for NJIT. If it's been paid for fall, it does transfer to spring as soon as they defer their admission. Ryan, do you want to do UMBC and UNL?
Yep, totally. So same as the cane for UNL first, it will definitely transfer to spring 2021. Previously, the process is that students would need to request for a refund and then repay the tuition or the enrollment deposit for the next intake. But for now, with all of the circumstances, definitely they don't have to do that process. Rather, if they it will automatically move towards the spring 2021. For UMBC, there are no deposits required for our graduate students. So definitely there's not much issue in there.
Great. Yeah, and then for SPU, anyone who deposited for the autumn quarter and then needs to change to winter quarter, which is January, it does automatically transfer as well, the enrollment deposit. And there is one additional note here, the second bullet point. we would ask you to please submit the deferral requests by September 1st at the latest. Especially for NJIT, it's pretty important that we follow that timeline, and the student does that by going on to their Highlander portal and filling out a quick form about what their plan is for the fall and spring semesters. So, you know, best of your abilities, please try to get those spring deferral requests submitted by September 1st so that we can get the student their new I-20 as soon as possible.
Thanks, Brent. Before we move into the next slide, there are two important questions for regarding the fall 2020. One would be, what is the per credit hour fees for online? So we have all of our campus coordinators here as well. So I'll just quickly answer for UNL that it is about $830 for the base tuition. For the freshmen, if your students are actually taking courses out of the College of Business or College of Engineering or College of Architecture, then there would be a differential tuition rate. All of those information can also be found online. So yeah, and further to that, UNL will be having a tuition freeze for the next 2 academic years, just for everyone's information. As for UMBC, Maria, do you just want to quickly tell what's the per credit hour cost?
Yeah. Sorry, I have some background noise. Can you repeat the last thing again? Sorry.
It's okay. Basically, I know it is, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, I just don't have the specific number right now in front of me. It's about 1,300 per credit hour. So basically, there are no changes to both UNL and UMBC in terms of taking courses online. It will actually stay the same based on the per credit hour. And then for Megan, you want to comment on Duquesne first for the tuition?
Sure. So our tuition will be the same for spring 2021. So for a student who has already been admitted and quoted their estimated costs, that will not be updated. The student can use that original information for spring 2021. And then I do not have any guidance yet about fall 2021, but I can keep our partners updated as soon as that's released by the university.
Perfect. Brian?
Great. Let's see. So for Duke, there's no difference in the price of online tuition or in-person tuition, so the fees will stay the same. For NJIT undergraduate, there's no online option, so that makes it easier. And then for NJIT postgraduate, the best thing to do, I think, is to look at their FlexPath website and then click on scholarship information. This explains the change in tuition price basically, but I'll just read it here too. So let's see. FlexPath students receive a scholarship that reduces their tuition by $500 per credit so that it matches an in-state student from New Jersey. So tuition per credit is $1,122 with a fee per credit of $189. So that's a total of $1,311 per credit compared to the in-person normal tuition cost, which is $1,802 per credit. Yeah, so that's basically a summary. So per credit, if they're taking an online class via the FlexPath, it's about $500 cheaper per credit. And, you know, obviously that will impact commission as well, but it's very nice for the student. It can definitely save them about $1,500 per 3 credit course. So that's a nice value to students. And then for and then for SPU, they are offering some online classes via the hybrid method, but the price of tuition is the same per credit hour.
Awesome. Brent, one more question that is very important for the fall 2020 students is that if the student already received an I-20, paid for the shipping fee of the I-20, then what, I just wanted to quickly answer this. The question is that, do they need to make another courier payment if they request for a spring 2021 I-20?
Great question.
So I know, since, I mean, this also refers back to the rescinded ICE case, because the March SEVP guideline actually says about the validity of the digital, what should we call this? Digital I-20 versions. So Brent and everyone else, like, feel free for our campus coordinators, feel free to please chime in if needed. So I know that, let's say for UMBC, they could just use a digital format of the I-20 and download a letter on the UMBC, from the UMBC's website, referring back to the SEVP guideline coming from March. So they don't really have, that means for UMBC, they don't really have to pay for the I-20, even if it's for spring, because what it says on the announcement from yesterday was that the guideline from March will actually extend up to the fall 2020 semester. But of course, for everyone's information, as we all know, there are a lot of moving parts right now with SCVP and ICE guidelines. So definitely we'll have to keep you posted. But for now, I am confidently gonna say that that they wouldn't really have to pay for another I-20 courier, but they could use a digital version of their I-20s. Brent?
Ryan, could you comment if, just for the students, like security, just because they might feel better going into their visa appointment if they have the one that's the paper copy that's printed and signed for spring, would they need to pay the courier fee for UMBC or UNL, or would the university cover the cost of the new FedEx label, for example?
Yeah, I am not 100% sure about that, but I know there are cases that for UNL, if I'm not mistaken, because we are actually talking about that too. So I know that for some students, we are definitely looking into that, and we'll be paying for the I-20 courier, especially if it needs, a couple of updates and annotations on the I-20.
Okay.
So I am guessing as well that for UMBC, not really guessing, but like for UMBC, to be honest, we're not that, there's a very limited number of students who have requested for to ship for the I-20. So we basically defer them into doing the digital copies for now.
Ryan,
Okay.
I can add here that before, when we shipped the I-20s, it was free. So I think the last message that IES sent out was that they will start shipping I-20s again once it's safe, because there were also some shipping services that were, shut down during the pandemic. But once it reopens, they are willing to ship, and I haven't heard anything else. So it should be continued to be free. But again, Michelle said, since, immigration is allowing the virtual version, I think even students could print out their PDF document at home because they know that it has been electronically signed. So I think either version would definitely be helping them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maria.
Megan, do you want to comment about the shipping fee for I-20s for Duquesne?
Yes, so we are working on getting those I-20s updated for our students who have deferred. And what we're doing is we are sending the digital copy directly through email to the student, and then we are covering the eShip global fee for those students who needed to defer.
Perfect. I will have to check on the policy for NJIT about this situation. So I'll jot down a note about that and follow up with our offshore team so that everyone is aware of the policy for NJIT for students who maybe had a fall I-20 and then decided to defer their their offer, exactly what they need to do to get the spring I-20. Great. These are excellent questions. I'm going to hop to the next slide. Let's see. So this is a lot of information, and we're already getting kind of close to our 1 hour mark. So let's see. This is just a summary, and again, we'll share this slide later of what are the direct entry requirements for our undergraduate applicants for spring 2021. And again, these aren't guarantees of admission, but they are general guidelines. So let me just point out a couple things. So we have our 4 universities that offer UG options here, their latest US News and World Report ranking, their QS-US ranking, which just came out, which is pretty exciting, and then minimum GPA to apply, minimum English proficiency options to get direct entry, policy about SAT, summary of annual tuition, scholarship opportunities at a very high level, the application deadline for spring, and the first day of class for the spring semester. So it's just kind of a quick snapshot for you. Notice that Duolingo is going to continue to be an option for several universities here, which is exciting. That's the DET. And a couple of our schools, Duquesne and SPU, also accept Pearson as well. So those are some good English proficiency options for undergraduate students. I think I'm going to hop over to PG quick though, and then if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop us. This table is the same thing, but it shows the PG direct entry opportunities for those 5 universities that it applies to, including minimum GPA to apply in, from a high level, English proficiency for direct entry, which does vary by program in some ways, but this is just a general guideline. GRE, which is quite interesting. GRE is not required for Duke. Maybe, I think our audience probably has the most interest in PG right now, just based on the regions that are in attendance. So Megan and Ryan, would you guys like to comment on anything in particular about the spring 21 application requirements for your university from a PG perspective?
Sure. I mean, I could go first for UMBC. It's pretty much simple for everyone. For the GRE at UMBC, it is still required. We are not doing any GRE waivers. However, there are certain programs at UMBC that does not require a GRE, like Information Systems Engineering Management, and a couple more programs. I would highly suggest for anyone to get in touch with our campus coordinator, Maria Blanca, to get those programs, or any of our EduCo offshore staff or regional managers would be able to answer those questions. Quickly, Brent, for I know that UMBC also accepts PTE in this case, and for Duolingo, unfortunately, we are not carrying over that requirement for the spring 2021. Maria, could you quickly comment on the score for PTE?
Yes, we accept the PTE for all programs. It's funny, we haven't had anybody submitting the PTE score, so I actually have to follow up with you on the equivalent. I have to double check to not tell you anything wrong here. Hold on for one moment. I'll add this in just a minute.
That's fine, Maria. If you wanna put it in the chat box, and then I'll update
That's
this
a good
slide
idea.
before I send it out to the team.
Cool.
Yeah.
Megan?
For Duquesne, what we're looking at right now is we are accepting IELTS, TOEFL, and the Duolingo English test, as well as if your student has studied at a English medium of instruction university for their bachelor's degree. we can submit rationale for a waiver for the English proficiency testing. So please do consider that with your students, especially if that student has a mark on their transcript that says the degree was in English, or if the institution can submit a letter on behalf of the student that the program was in English, we will not look for that testing requirement. So that has been really helpful for our students coming from countries where English was the medium of instruction. And for now, for our programs that do require GRE, we're still seeing that GRE waivers are being granted at this time. So I would highly recommend, if you have students that do not plan to take the GRE, to please have them apply sooner rather than later for spring, just in case the university decides to update that GRE waiver need. So get your applications in soon before that change may happen. I haven't gotten any updates about it, so fingers crossed that it remains the same for all of spring intake.
Thanks. Brent, can I quickly comment on an overall question here about IELTS and TOEFL centers they're still closed in India and in some parts of the world. So Duolingo and IELTS will, IELTS and TOEFL will not be possible. For everyone's information, just wanted to refresh everyone's memory that we do IELTS is also available online as well as TOEFL at home. If that is possible, that is highly suggested and advised to be taken. But of course, like for those institutions under EduCo that are accepting Duolingo, please go ahead and use Duolingo as an English proficiency exam. If not, then we can try to assist you in terms of like the IELTS online as well as the TOEFL.
Thanks, Ryan. That's great. Yeah, one other thing I thought to point out here too, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but the spring application is open for all of our universities. So if you're advising brand new students, we can go ahead and accept the applications, with the exception of NJIT. Their spring application isn't quite available yet. But for the other schools, I believe it is. And an early reminder about what are the earliest deadlines for spring. For Duke, we are asking that students apply by October 1st. Ryan or Maria, is it correct that the traditional master's degrees will have the October 1st deadline for spring as well?
Yeah, so Brent, regarding there are a couple of programs that have like a very, very early deadline for spring. I'm currently looking at the MS Computer Science program. Currently, our international application deadline for spring says July 1st, but with all of what's happening, I'm pretty sure most of the programs will be more flexible than ever. And then for MPS, definitely this is correct. It's actually December 1st. But then again, for the Master of Professional Studies courses or programs, they are still eligible, or they are pretty much more flexible than other programs. And even if your student submits their application in by December 15th, complete the documents by December 15th, we are able to assist you in terms of requesting for an approval for that specific student to be reviewed.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, and then I'll just quickly comment on the other three schools here. So Duke is going to continue to accept all of these English proficiency options going forward. And they also have the policy that Megan mentioned about degree programs that were completed in English. So check our website for that one. From what we know, yeah, and there's no GRE requirement for Duke. From what we know for NJIT, things are reverting back to normal, basically. So IELTS and TOEFL remain the same, but Duolingo appears to be going away, and the GRE waiver for new students appears to also be going away. So we would need to revert back to the normal GRE policy for NJIT. For SPU, they're going to continue to offer the option of Duolingo going forward, which is great. And for So autumn 20, winter 21, and spring 21, which is a March intake because it's a quarter system. GRE is also completely optional. So similar to what Megan said for Duquesne, there are some excellent opportunities to get into great American universities right now for PG without a GRE. So, you know, hopefully students will take advantage of that because it's a really great opportunity. Cool. Let's see. Ryan, you want to kick off with this slide?
Yes, totally. So for a couple of reminders for everyone, as you can see on your screen, here are the start dates for you for all of the EduCo school for UMBC. Program starts or classes starts on August 27th. The census date is basically the last date to withdraw from classes or add and drop classes, which is November 11th. For UNL, again, we are starting a little bit early than usual. It is August 17th, and the census date or add drop date would be September 18. NJIT, September 1, November 9. Brenda, you want to comment on that if there's any additional stuff?
The only thing I would add there is for students who are, you know, they get a visa interview, but maybe it's in mid to late August. That's okay, but they do need to arrive to NJIT by September 11th at the very latest if they're going to do the in-person or hybrid semester. If not, they may need to do online classes for fall and then arrive to New Jersey for spring in January. So I think that's an important note there about NJIT. For SPU, the first day of classes is September 14th, and we can allow 7 to 10 days of late arrival there as well for those late visa approvals. I'll turn it over to Megan for Duquesne. And Megan, if you could also talk about sorry, there's a dump truck driving by my house right now. That's why it's loud. Megan, could you also talk about students who get late visas and when they could potentially arrive to Pittsburgh?
Sure. So our start date for classes is going to be August 24. That's for students who are starting the fully online program as well as the hybrid model. So our in-person classes will begin on August 24 as well. And then the university departments have been really flexible about late arrivals. So if the student intends to start online and have their visa appointment in September or October, they're willing to put out a late arrival letter for the student to take with them to get across the border to enter the US. So we just have to work on a case-by-case basis with those students who have the intention of still arriving in fall, but it may be late.
Hey, Brent, can I quickly comment on UNL as well?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, for UNL, for the hybrid option, the last day to arrive on campus is actually, they need to be there before September 20th. If one of your students or any of your students actually chooses to do a hybrid program, they would need to be registered. They must be registered for classes no later than August 30th. But yeah, the last day to arrive on campus for the hybrid instruction would be September 20th.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. And then just quickly for Duke, we would want students to definitely be in North Carolina by middle of August if they're going to do an in-person. If any later than that, it's much better that we just defer their offer to January. That'll just make for a much better experience. You know, to summarize at a high level, it seems to me that UNL, SPU, and Duquesne are offering some really great opportunities for students who are able to get the visa interviews that are a little bit later. You know, if they're in mid to late August, these three universities have built in quite a bit of flexibility with being able to start classes online at the beginning of the semester and then join the you know, on campus a little bit later into the fall semester. So I guess if I had a message to students, I would just say, like, don't give up on your fall I-20 yet, because especially for those 3 schools, because there is flexibility with the arrival timeline. And I see we might have questions, but Ryan, just let me know if there's any questions in the chat box or anything.
Yeah, one question would actually be for the late arrival at UMBC. Just to clarify on that, UMBC as of the moment is completely, like, mostly 100% online courses. So, but we will actually be able to send you a couple of emails around the UMBC's policy for fall 2020 and clarify that to you guys. And I'll keep you posted for this week.
Fantastic. So we're almost at our time. We only have a couple more slides left anyways, so I think it's going to end up being just about perfect. The next 2 slides are talking a little bit more specifically about the deferral process for UMBC and UNL. So I'll turn that over to Ryan. And then Megan, if you'd like to also just comment about how it's similar to Duquesne, I think that'll be a great way for us to wrap up, and then we can answer any questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Brent. So for the referral process for UMBC, it's pretty much simple. I'm going to wrap it up into 3 steps. First one, we do have the Google form online. Please ask your students that if they cannot find the link, please send an email to Maria, and we are more than happy to give them or send them the link to the Google form that we have. They would be able to see like a PDF form as well. They do not need to do that PDF form as of the moment. They can get away in terms of, or we can do the deferral process by just filling out the Google form alone. And then once that Google form is filled out, then they would just need to wait for confirmation coming from Maria or the graduate school. If the student have registered for classes, then they must withdraw from all of those classes. A couple of one thing to take note here is that because of the high volume of requests for deferral for UMBC, it's taking us a little bit of time in terms of approving all of the deferral requests. But we got a word from the program directors that all deferrals will be approved. There are, I would say 1% or like 0.01% chance that the deferral will not be approved. Definitely in our case, I haven't seen any an approved deferral request. So again, just reassuring that to your students. And then the last step is that once the deferral process is not submitted, but like received by the student, and they have their new offer for the new intake, then they could go ahead and update their financials by logging into the IES portal if needed. However, we will say Maria and I or any of our team at UMBC will also be in touch with the students regarding the next steps whenever we know that the deferral letter has been sent out. The deadline for the UMBC deferral is September. I wouldn't really say September 1 as much as possible. Please submit your the deferral request no later than August 24th. But of course, like there's no specific date. It's just that for faster processing, if we don't want to waste so much time because of the I-20 as well, I would highly suggest to submit the deferral no later than August 24th. But if there are unforeseen circumstances, feel free to get in touch with me or Maria. So that's that for UMBC. And then for UNL, it's pretty much simple. Basically, they just need to send an email to admissions@unl.edu. And most importantly, please do not forget to copy in Cursa Malone. Cursa is one of our international recruitment specialists at the undergrad admissions office at UNL. Once they send an email to the admissions team, then they would just need to wait a confirmation from the email. And then the last step would be if the student did not initially submit their final transcript, including the year 12 grades, then for spring 2021 or fall 2021, those grades will be required. please submit those to Carissa once the student actually have it. And then I guess that's it. It's pretty much simple for both of the institutions. If you guys are not sure, I am more than happy to. I'll post all of the email addresses of our campus coordinators and on the chat box. Brent, over to you, or Megan.
Hi, everyone. So what Ryan described is very similar for Duquesne. What will happen is if the student wishes to defer, they'll send me an email, and I will type my email address into the chat box now. This request will be sent then to the department, who will process the deferment request and update the offer letter for spring 2021 or fall 2021, depending on the program. So please have your students do this whenever they've made their final decision. If they still need to wait, if they're waiting on the visa appointment and would like to see what's going to happen, that's fine. I would just say that the student should have this deferment request in by August 24, which is our start of classes. That way we know what the student's intention is. So please, again, if there's anyone that needs to go through this process, it's quite simple, and just have them email me evangelistm@duq.edu. Thank you.
Awesome. And I'll just quickly comment about NJIT. Students that want to defer from fall to spring 2021, the process to follow there is for them to log into their Highlander portal and fill out the form about their intentions for fall 20 semester. And there's an option there to indicate that they're going to defer to spring. Please have that submitted no later than September 1st. And just like with UMBC, please be patient and allow maybe 2 weeks for it to be processed by Alberto and Heather there at NJIT, because I know the volume is going to be pretty big. Awesome. I think that is our last official slide. We should have definitely had Maria and Megan's pictures here too. Thank you guys so much for your support and insight during this webinar. Are there any questions from the audience members? We really didn't spend much time talking about SEVIS and ICE because things kind of reverted back to how they were. But we're super happy to answer any questions you have about any of the material we covered.
Yep. Hey, Brent. So there is a question from Rakesh. Will the online classes affect the post-study work visa? So I'm pretty sure this is about OPT and CPT, even if they take the online classes in their home country. And how will CPT and OPT work? So
Yeah.
I'll quickly answer for the CPT. There are two parts in here, specifically for undergrad and postgrad. I would say CPT for undergrad will not, as well as OPT, will not be affected, just because the federal regulations for CPT and OPT for CPT is that they would need to be in the country for at least 2 semesters or 1 year, or 1 full academic year. So definitely that's not something that our undergraduate students should be worried about, neither with their OPT. So definitely, again, CPT, OPT for undergrad, there's nothing to worry about, to be honest, unless, Brent, do you have any addition to that first?
Nope, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. And then for the postgraduate programs, this is where it actually becomes a little bit tricky, just because CPT requires 2 full semesters before being eligible. Then it will definitely mean the online courses will not count towards the CPT eligibility. So again, the online classes will not count towards the CPT eligibility, especially, again, it's pretty much clear on the requirements. As of the moment, there are no changes to the CPT eligibility requirements, which is 2 full semesters on campus. Brent, any addition?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, cool. And then I guess this last one, OPT, as of the moment, I don't think there are any changes with the OPT eligibility as well. Typically for graduate students, they use the OPT right after their graduation, which is of course like if they have finished their degree in the U.S., everyone is actually eligible to take or to do what an OPT. And for those who have taken a STEM program or graduated with a STEM program, will be eligible for a STEM OPT. Again, for everyone's information, we are still waiting for a couple more guidance or more clarity coming from ICE. And as soon as we know anything about that, if there are any specific changes, you will hear from the EduCo USA team or each of our campus coordinators or even our regional managers from each of your markets.
Yeah, and I would mention there was a lot of like fear and anxiety that maybe OPT would be affected by an executive order. There was a lot of rumors about that last month, for example. The administration did issue an executive order that affected some visas, but OPT and the F1 visa were not included in that at all. So I think that was a nice like sigh of relief for everyone. For example, I think it may have affected some L visas for specialized workers. If you have in-depth questions about that executive order, we can find the information and share that with you. But the take-home message is that nothing has happened with OPT. And I think one thing that was very clear this last week is that certainly the university community, but also the business community in the United States is extremely defensive and protective of international students. And if the current administration does any additional policy about this, they're going to face a massive backlash from those stakeholders. So for me, I was a little bit encouraged about that reaction.
Great. And then Brent, a couple more questions. Sandra mentioned, or this is probably for Megan, could you confirm the Duquesne's refund policy if in case students doesn't get a visa in the spring? Megan?
And that's I bet that's online for students who take online classes and then aren't able to get a visa for another later semester.
So the university has not yet determined a policy for that. I have to say that in the past, if a student was not granted the visa, the university did refund their deposit, but they have not given me clear guidelines yet about refunding tuition. So again, it's most likely a case-by-case basis, and the university has been very flexible and understanding in the past, but I know that doesn't give a definitive answer. So I continue to ask this question, and once I get the information, I can share it with our partners.
Thanks, Megan. Just a blanket information for most of the institutions, especially for public institutions under partnered with EduCo, like UNL and UMBC. Of course, there was a question about refund policy. As of the moment, if the student actually took completely or successfully completed the online courses, we are not able to do the refund if they cannot get through or if they cannot get a visa for the spring 2021. However, these courses are 100% transferable either to other U.S. institutions or EduCo institutions or within your local institutions because of the accreditations of the course or the program and the university. So basically, I would say that they are not really, I mean, we understand there are a lot of uncertainties in that specific topic, but for UMBC, basically, we never had a lot of issues in terms of visa grants. We have a very high visa grant rate for UMBC, specifically coming from India and all parts of the world, to be honest. So that's not something that I'm going to be worried about as of the moment. But totally, that is, of course, a valid concern. Brent, do you have anything additional for like NGIT and other stuff?
I think the policy is the same. Usually the universities consider that if a student has taken an online class, they received the education, they received the service that they're paying for, so it's kind of tough for them to refund it, even though I think all of us on this call totally understand like how sad it would be for them to not get a visa to actually come to the United States and continue their education here, since that's what international students are really looking to do. So unfortunately, like if a student takes online classes in the fall for the other universities and doesn't get a visa later, I would be kind of not super optimistic that the university would refund tuition, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And then just one last note on that before we move forward into the last 3 questions. So basically, I want everyone to, of course, understand that all of these university, under the university administrator, basically, we also have like operational expenses that we need to consider, paying the online resources for the students while they're taking their online classes, those kind of stuff. And this is of course, one of the reasons, or a couple of reasons, why the university isn't able to do the refund even if they don't get the visa. So yep, and then just wanted to be mindful of our time. So what happens to students if the visa office is still closed in their home country? That's something again we'll have to defer to either deferring the intake up to fall 2021, most likely. It really depends, or do the online classes. It really depends. Again, the situation would vary per student or per country. So I would highly suggest for you guys, if you are a student or if you have any students concerned about that, please get in touch with any of our campus coordinators or to myself or Brent via email, and we're more than happy to, of course, answer those on a more personal level. And then Brent, the next question is about the quarantine. Will the quarantine costs will be the quarantine costs will be borne by the students? Like, will they have to take care of those costs in case they arrive for hybrid or face-to-face classes?
Yeah, that's a great question. The one university I've seen some policy about this released so far was Seattle Pacific, and they were saying upon arrival the student would likely need to quarantine for 14 days. They are setting up options for students to do that on campus in a specialized dormitory at SPU, which I thought was really nice for students living on campus. Otherwise, that's correct. Like if the student needs to go and stay in a hotel for 2 weeks during the quarantine, that would fall on the student to pay for that, unfortunately. Ryan or Megan, I'm not sure if you guys know anything particular yet, any specific details about the quarantine policies for your schools?
Yeah, Brent, I'll quickly ask. I know Rachel is here. Rachel, do you know anything about for UNL for the quarantine? Yeah, can't hear you. Megan, you want to go first?
Hi, Ryan. I can answer while Rachel comes on. So far, the university has not released that there would be an official quarantine policy because the university feels that students will make that individual choice for themselves. They have heightened all of our safety measures for once the student is on campus and using university facilities. So that was released in our master plan this past week. So what I can do is put that into the chat box, but so far the university is not saying that the student would be required to quarantine for 14 days upon arrival.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, I don't think Rachel's here. Probably she has another meeting. But I know for UNO, I know that we do not have any policy yet for the quarantine. But if there's any, again, most of you guys will definitely know about it, as well as your students. I'm just being mindful of our time because we went over, of course, an hour already. Brent, do you have any last words before anything else?
No, nothing from my side.
All
Thanks
right.
everyone for joining.
Yeah. So again, you for the unanswered questions, please feel free to send us an email. You got my email address there, ryan.ibasco@educoglobal.com. You also have Brent, which is brent.schmoker educoglobal.com. Brent and I are more than happy to assist all of your questions or any of our campus coordinators like Megan, Maria, Carissa, as well as Rachel. So please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. We are sharing the presentation and we'll probably add in a couple of slides specifically for, let's say, tuition fee for online courses. But yeah, last words, thank you so much for being with us today. And again, let's all celebrate with the success that we've had from yesterday's rescinded policy from ICE, and we'll keep you posted if there are any other information that we receive from the new guideline. Thank you.
Can I say one thing? Is it okay to invite again? I already sent it out various ways, but invite UMBC. We're still doing the bi-weekly Q&A, live Q&A, so all the students or agents, everybody can join, submit questions. If it's okay with you, Ryan and Brent, I'll quickly put the link to join and the link to submit questions if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Go for it. And then,
perfect. Yeah, please join.
Yep. Thanks, Maria. Megan, any last words before we go?
I want just to thank everyone so much for joining us today and getting all of this sometimes confusing information clear, and we appreciate you partnering with us.
All right.
I second that. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope everyone would have a good night, and we'll speak to you soon.
Have a great evening.